Let me set the scene for you. I'm Eric, 47 years old, husband to Amanda for the past 17 years, and father to our 16-year-old daughter, Sophie. Life, for the most part, has been a whirlwind of work, parenting, and trying to maintain the delicate balance of marriage. Amanda and I run a small but successful business together. Think mom and pop with a modern twist. Between managing accounts, client meetings, and Sophie's endless extracurriculars, we hardly find time to sit and breathe. But somehow, we've made it work. Now, Amanda and I have always been proactive people. She's into yoga, book clubs, and what I can only describe as the art of brunching. Meanwhile, I've got my hands full with work, a passion for woodworking, and my weekly basketball games with the guys. We're both social, always buzzing around doing 1,000 things. Sure, we've drifted a little over the years, but I chalked that up to life, and honestly, the space seemed healthy. It kept us energized. For our 17th wedding anniversary, I decided to go big. Amanda had been dropping subtle hints about needing a break, so I planned a weekend getaway to one of the most gorgeous spots I could think of, Monarch Bay Resort in Dana Point, California. Picture this: oceanfront views, sunsets so perfect you'd think they were photoshopped, and a level of luxury that screams, "You deserve this." It's the kind of place where people Instagram their eggs Benedict like it's an Oscar-worthy moment. Amanda was thrilled when I told her. "Oh, Eric," she beamed, her green eyes lighting up like a Christmas tree. "You actually listened to me for once. That's marriage for you. Getting credit for listening is rare and feels oddly like winning an award." Fast forward to the trip. The resort was everything I'd hoped it would be and more. We spent our days lounging by the infinity pool, sipping margaritas while the waves crashed in the distance. For the first time in ages, we were disconnected from work, Sophie's teenage dramas, and the constant ding of notifications. It felt normal, happy, like the couple we used to be before life got so damn busy. The second night, I made reservations at a little seaside restaurant right on the property. The kind of place where the fish is so fresh, you swear it swam onto your plate. Amanda looked stunning, dressed in this flowy summer dress that matched the ocean breeze perfectly. I remember thinking, this is it. We've still got it. We clinked glasses, laughed about silly memories, and even made a few half-hearted jokes about getting old. I was feeling like a pretty great husband, if I do say so myself. And then, she said it. As the waiter cleared our plates and the gentle hum of waves filled the air, Amanda leaned back in her chair, a dreamy look on her face. "You know, Eric, I love this place," she began. "I can't wait to come back here again, with Justin. He'd absolutely adore this kind of relaxing atmosphere." For a second, I didn't process it. My mind stumbled over the words like a drunk guy trying to climb stairs. Justin? Did she just say Justin? Who the hell is Justin? I must have looked like a deer caught in headlights because Amanda just kept sipping her wine like she'd casually commented on the weather. Finally, I managed to stammer out, "What was that, Amanda? What the hell are you talking about? Who's Justin?" She blinked at me, all wide-eyed innocence, like I was the one being weird. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't some slip of the tongue. Amanda knew exactly what she was saying. And with that, my perfect anniversary weekend took a nosedive straight into the ocean. I sat there, staring at Amanda, my mind spinning like a slot machine, desperately trying to land on some logical explanation for what she'd just said. But before I could even process, she leaned forward with this puzzled expression and said, "Eric, wait, you don't know Justin? He's my friend. We met at yoga. Oh, and he's been to my book club too, on my recommendation, of course." She said it so casually, like she was introducing me to a neighbor I'd never met before, not someone she'd apparently been sneaking around with. Amanda didn't stop there. She launched into this giddy little spiel about Justin, complete with hand gestures and dreamy eyes. "He's such a great guy, Eric. You'd like him. He's so insightful, always bringing these unique perspectives to our book discussions. And his yoga poses, oh my God, you wouldn't believe how flexible he is. He's a natural." I held up a hand, cutting her off mid-sentence. "Amanda," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. I don't care how flexible Justin is, or how many damn books he reads. What I want to know is why. Why in the hell you just said you want to come back here with him? Her eyes lit up like I'd asked her to explain her favorite movie. Well, because it's romantic, obviously. I mean, this place is just perfect for a getaway. And, sometimes I sleep with him. So being here would be such a delight, for both the body and the soul. I froze. My hand instinctively shot to my forehead, as if holding it would somehow keep my brain from exploding. My jaw hung open, and for a moment I genuinely thought I might be hallucinating. Was I dreaming? Was this some sort of cruel, elaborate prank? Wait. Hold on, I managed to croak. Amanda, are you telling me you're cheating on me? Justin is your lover? And you're just telling me this like it's a normal thing? Like we're talking about what to have for dessert? Amanda looked at me like I was the crazy one. Cheating? Eric, don't be so dramatic. It's not cheating, it's perfectly normal. I mean, you didn't say you were against it. I almost fell out of my chair. What? Are you serious? I'm hearing about this for the first time. I never gave you, permission to cheat? What is this insanity? Is this some kind of prank? Amanda, are you even listening to yourself right now? I was practically shouting, and that's when Amanda's tone shifted. Her cheerful demeanor cracked just slightly as she put her wine glass down and hissed, Eric, lower your voice. Stop making that face. You're scaring me, and you're going to ruin the mood here. Oh, I'm ruining the mood? I barked, loud enough that the couple at the next table turned their heads. Amanda, you just told me you're having an affair, and now you're acting like I'm the problem? Eric, stop it, she hissed, her voice rising. You're embarrassing me. Can't we just have a calm, adult conversation about this? People were starting to notice. A waiter hovering nearby gave us a polite but worried glance. I felt my face burning, not from embarrassment, but from pure, unfiltered rage. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor as I pushed it back. Fine, Amanda, I growled, my voice barely contained. Let's go back to the room. Right now. If you want to talk, we'll do it there. Away from all these people. She looked around nervously, noticing the stares we were getting. With a dramatic sigh, she grabbed her purse and followed me, muttering something under her breath about how I was overreacting. As we made our way out of the restaurant, I could feel my blood boiling. Romantic getaway. My ass. This weekend had just turned into a nightmare, and I wasn't about to let Amanda gaslight me into thinking it was all in my head. The door to the hotel room slammed shut behind us, and I turned to face Amanda, my heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon. The calm, romantic atmosphere of our anniversary had been shredded into pieces. Now it was just me, Amanda, and a storm of questions that needed answers. All right, Amanda, I said, crossing my arms. Explain this to me. Why are you doing this? Why cheat on me? Or is this some sort of joke? Tell me this is a joke. She sighed dramatically, like I was the unreasonable one here. Eric, it's not cheating, she said, her tone dripping with condescension. I told you, it's a partnership. A different kind of partnership. A partnership? I snapped, my voice rising. Amanda, this isn't some corporate deal we're negotiating. It's our marriage, and what you're describing isn't a partnership. It's betrayal. She shook her head, almost laughing. Eric, don't be so old-fashioned. It's perfectly normal. You even agreed to this. I blinked, stunned. What? Amanda, are you out of your mind? I would never agree to this. Even if I had lost my sanity, I'd still never give my wife permission to sleep with another man. Amanda held up her hand, signaling me to calm down. Eric, you did agree, at least in a way. Do you remember that conversation we had about 4 months ago? I frowned, trying to piece together what she was talking about. What conversation? You know, she said, her voice light and almost amused. That day I was sitting in the kitchen with Victoria, and you walked in. We were chatting, and I casually asked how you felt about an open marriage. You said, and I quote, open marriage? Absolutely, I'm all for it. You know, trust, communication, spending time together. It's way better than a closed marriage where we avoid each other and live in separate rooms like roommates. Then you laughed and walked out. Don't you remember? It hit me like a freight train. I did remember that day. I'd been in a rush to leave for a meeting, and when Amanda and her friend brought up open marriage, I'd thrown out a sarcastic remark and walked away. At the time, it had felt like nothing more than a throwaway joke. "Oh my God," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. "I remember now. Amanda, I was kidding. I didn't know what the hell you were even talking about, and I certainly didn't take it seriously. Open marriage? Closed marriage? You didn't even explain the idea to me." She shrugged. "Well, maybe you should have asked." I pulled out my phone, my hands trembling slightly, and typed open marriage meaning into Google. Within seconds, articles popped up, complete with definitions, examples, and stories. As I skimmed through, my stomach turned. This is insane," I finally said, my voice trembling with anger. "You didn't discuss this with me. You didn't wait for a clear answer. You just took advantage of the fact that I didn't understand what you were talking about." Amanda crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "Don't act like an idiot, Eric. I know exactly what I saw. After that conversation, I noticed how you were acting with Rachel, one of our clients. You were all flirty and overly friendly with her. Don't even try to deny it. I figured you were already sleeping with her, so I made a logical conclusion. If it's normal for you, why can't it be for me? Besides, we're successful, Eric. We have an almost grown daughter. Why not bring new experiences into our marriage?" My jaw hit the metaphorical floor. "Rachel?" I exclaimed, throwing my arms in the air. "Oh my God, Amanda, I wasn't flirting with her. I was just being polite. I promised to help her with a project because her dad, who's a friend of mine, asked me to. Rachel is married, with a kid, and she's 10 years younger than me. Are you even listening to yourself?" Amanda stared at me, her face blank for a moment, like she couldn't comprehend why I wasn't seeing things her way. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. Amanda had twisted everything, spun her own narrative, and somehow convinced herself that I was the one at fault here. Before you find out what happens next, please subscribe to the channel. I stared at Amanda, the woman I'd spent nearly 2 decades of my life with, and for the first time, I didn't recognize her. Her casual dismissal of everything, our trust, our values, our marriage, was like a dagger to the chest, and now she was doubling down. "All right," she said, leaning back on the bed like we were just having a casual chat. "Let's say, for argument's sake, you really don't have anything going on with Rachel, though, come on, Eric, she's a total hottie. But what about your basketball games with the guys? I mean, honestly, isn't that just an excuse to sneak off somewhere? A strip club maybe? Or something even more explicit?" I blinked at her, completely stunned. "What the hell are you talking about, Amanda?" She cut me off before I could say another word. "Don't even try to deny it, Eric. I've read about this stuff. Plenty of books, articles, even stories from other women. I get it, really. I'm not judging you. All I'm saying is, you need to accept that I have a partner on the side, just like I've accepted the possibility that you might too." Her tone was calm, almost cheerful, like she was explaining some new diet plan. Meanwhile, I could feel my blood boiling, the rage rising in my chest like a tidal wave. "Amanda," I said, my voice shaking, "this is madness. It's complete and utter bullshit. Don't you dare sit there and turn this around on me. I'm not the bad guy here, and I'm not going to let you make me feel like some kind of idiot." I couldn't take it anymore. My patience had run out. I walked over to the closet, yanked out my suitcase, and started throwing my clothes into it. "What are you doing?" Amanda asked, her voice tinged with amusement, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "What does it look like?" I snapped. "The vacation's over. I'm done. I don't want to be here, and I don't want to look at you right now." Amanda crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe, completely unfazed. "Well, that's fine, Eric, but I'm staying. I'm not going to let your little meltdown ruin my weekend. I'm going to enjoy myself here, just like we planned." I zipped up my suitcase and turned to face her, my hands trembling. "Amanda, let me make one thing perfectly clear. I will never, ever accept your so-called partnership with Justin or anyone else. What you're doing is cheating, plain and simple. And if you think I'm just going to roll over and let this happen, you're dead wrong. I'm prepared to take radical measures, starting with filing for divorce. She laughed, actually laughed, like I'd just told her a bad joke. Eric, she said, shaking her head, don't be so dramatic. You're not going to divorce me. Stop trying to use it as some kind of threat. Just cool off and think about it, okay? Besides, I love you. Justin is just a light romantic fling. If it bothers you that much, I can stop seeing him in a couple of months. Take a little break so you won't feel so upset. That was it. That was the moment the last shred of patience and hope I had for this marriage evaporated. Her smug smile, her ridiculous attempt to negotiate her infidelity like it was some kind of business arrangement. I couldn't take it anymore. Oh my God, I said, shaking my head in disbelief. You don't get it, do you? You're standing here destroying everything we built together, and you think I'll just go along with it. Well, guess what, Amanda? I'm done. Without another word, I grabbed my suitcase, stormed out of the room, and left the resort. The drive home was a blur, but my thoughts were crystal clear. Amanda's gaslighting, her infidelity, her complete disregard for the values we once shared, it all solidified one thing in my mind. This wasn't just the end of a vacation, it was the end of our marriage. As an idealist, I'd always believed in the American values of freedom, responsibility, and morality. To me, freedom didn't mean recklessness or selfishness. It meant respect, accountability, and building something meaningful. Amanda had trampled on those values, and I knew I couldn't stay with someone who had no respect for them, or for me. This wasn't going to be easy, but I was determined to take back control of my life. No more lies, no more manipulation. It was time to move on. When I pulled into the driveway, the house felt oddly quiet. Before I could set my suitcase down, Sophie appeared at the top of the stairs, her face lighting up in surprise. Dad? What are you doing home already? Where's Mom? I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Sophie had always been perceptive, too perceptive sometimes. I knew I couldn't just brush her off, but I also couldn't lay everything on her shoulders. Well, I began, choosing my words carefully, your mom and I had a disagreement, a big one. She decided to stay at the resort a little longer, and I came home to clear my head. Sophie's brows furrowed and she took a step down the stairs. What kind of disagreement? Is everything okay? I hesitated, then met her worried gaze. Look, Soph, I'm not going to lie to you. Things between your mom and me are complicated right now. There's a chance we might not stay together. Her face fell, and she wrapped her arms around herself like she was bracing for bad news. You mean a divorce? I walked over and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. I know this is a lot to take in, but I promise you, no matter what happens, everything's going to be okay. You're my priority, and I'm going to make sure you're taken care of. Always. She nodded, though I could see the concern in her eyes. Okay, Dad. I trust you. Once Sophie went back to her room, I pulled out my phone and dialed the number of my attorney, a no-nonsense guy named Paul who had helped me with some business contracts in the past. Eric, Paul said when he picked up, didn't expect to hear from you during your big anniversary getaway. What's up? Paul, I said, getting straight to the point, I need you to prepare divorce papers, and I need them as soon as possible. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Divorce? This is sudden. Are you sure? As sure as I've ever been about anything, I replied, pacing the living room. I need you to help me figure out how to handle the division of our assets, our business, finances, everything, and I need to make sure Sophie is okay in all of this. Paul sighed. All right, let's start with the basics. The easiest route is to split everything 50-50. That's the standard in most cases unless you both agree on different terms. We can also negotiate specifics, but it'll depend on how cooperative Amanda is. As for Sophie, she's old enough to have some say in custody arrangements, but it's good to have a plan in place regardless. Got it, I said, jotting down notes. Let's get the ball rolling. I want a draft ready as soon as possible. Understood, Paul said. The days that followed felt surreal. I threw myself into work, trying to keep my mind off the impending confrontation. Sophie kept her distance, probably sensing that I needed space, but I could tell she was worried. By the time Amanda returned home, Paul had already sent over the preliminary divorce documents. The moment Amanda walked through the door, she spotted the stack of papers sitting on the kitchen counter. Her eyes narrowed as she picked them up, skimming through the pages. "What's this?" she asked, her voice sharp. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and locked eyes with her. "It's exactly what it looks like, Amanda. A draft of the divorce agreement. I'm done with the lies, the gaslighting, and whatever you think this marriage has become." Sophie appeared in the doorway, her expression a mix of confusion and fear. "What's going on?" Amanda turned to her, her face softening instantly. "Sweetheart, don't worry. It's just adult stuff. Your dad and I are working through some things." I spoke up, my tone firm but calm. "No, Amanda. No more sugarcoating. Sophie deserves the truth. She knows things aren't right between us, and she's smart enough to understand what's happening." Amanda's jaw tightened as she glanced between the two of us. "This is ridiculous, Eric. We don't need lawyers. We can work this out, like adults." I shook my head, holding her gaze. Adults don't lie to each other. Adults don't betray each other. And adults certainly don't rewrite the rules of a marriage without asking. The room fell silent, the weight of the situation hanging heavily in the air. Sophie's eyes flicked between us, waiting for someone to explain what would happen next. This was the moment. The line had been drawn, and there was no turning back. Amanda stood in the middle of the kitchen, her eyes fixed on Sophie. She placed the divorce papers on the counter with an exaggerated sigh and turned her full attention to our daughter. "Sophie, sweetheart," she began, her voice soft and patronizing, "I think you deserve to know what's really going on here. Your father," she paused for effect, shooting me a pointed look, "agreed to an open marriage. But now he's twisting things around to make me look like the bad guy so he can divorce me. He's using my honesty against me." Sophie froze, her face a mix of confusion and disbelief. "What? Dad, is that true?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "No, Sophie, that's not true. I never agreed to anything of the sort. Your mom brought up the idea in a passing conversation months ago, and I thought she was joking. That's it." Amanda scoffed, crossing her arms. "Oh, so now you're denying everything? Eric, you've always been good at playing the innocent card, but let's be real. You just don't value honesty. You'd rather keep your little affairs under wraps while pretending to be the perfect husband." Sophie's jaw dropped. "Affairs? What are you even talking about?" Amanda nodded, her expression grave. "Oh, come on, Sophie. Don't tell me you haven't noticed how friendly your dad is with certain women. Like Rachel, for example. He thinks I don't see it, but I do." Sophie's wide eyes turned to me, and I felt my chest tighten. "That is not true," I said firmly, meeting her gaze. "Rachel is a client, nothing more. Amanda's trying to paint a picture that doesn't exist to justify her own choices. I have never cheated on your mother, Sophie. Never." Sophie looked back and forth between us, her trust clearly shaken. "Mom, Dad, I don't know what to think. This is all so—" She trailed off, biting her lip. "Sophie," Amanda interrupted, stepping closer to her, "you just don't understand. When you've been married to the same man for 17 years, you start to see things differently. One day, when you're in a long marriage, you'll understand my perspective." But Amanda's words didn't have the intended effect. Sophie's eyes narrowed, and she straightened her shoulders. "No, Mom, I don't think I ever will. Just talking about an open marriage sounds like a betrayal to me. How could you even think this is okay?" Amanda's face hardened, but before she could respond, I stepped in. "Enough," I said, my voice firm but calm. "This isn't a conversation Sophie should be in the middle of. We've both said more than we should." The room went silent for a moment, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, Sophie broke the silence. "Dad," she said, turning to me, "I want to stay with you. I'm not leaving you to deal with all this alone. Amanda's face turned pale. Sophie, no. You can't just take sides like that. You're too young to understand what's really going on. But Sophie didn't back down. I understand enough, Mom. And right now, Dad needs me more than you do. I held up a hand trying to de-escalate. Sophie, listen. This is a lot for you to handle. Maybe we should take a step back. What if I take you to Elizabeth's house for a couple of days? You can stay with her and get some space while your mom and I figure things out. Sophie hesitated, her resolve softening slightly. Elizabeth's house? I guess that could work. But only if you promise to call me every day, Dad. I promise, I said, relieved that she was willing to take a breather from this madness. Amanda, to my surprise, didn't argue. She simply nodded, though her lips were pressed into a thin line. Fine. If Sophie wants to stay with her friend, that's fine. But this isn't over, Eric. Not by a long shot. I didn't respond. I just grabbed my keys and Sophie's overnight bag and led her out the door. As I drove her to Elizabeth's house, I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt for dragging her into this mess. But I also knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let Amanda's manipulation destroy the bond I had with my daughter. When I dropped Sophie off, she gave me a hug and whispered, "Don't let her get to you, Dad. You're doing the right thing." Those words gave me a small glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we'd make it through this storm after all. The days that followed were a fog of emotional exhaustion and heavy conversations. Amanda called me incessantly, trying every angle she could think of to sway me. "Eric," she pleaded during one call, her voice softer than I'd heard in years. "We've built so much together. Our business, our home, our family. Do you really want to throw all of that away? Think about Sophie. Think about everything we've accomplished." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tightly. "Amanda," I said, my voice low and steady, "none of that matters anymore. Every time I look at you, I'll remember that night. I'll remember the lies, the betrayal, and the conversations about an open marriage. I can't unsee it. I can't unfeel it." She was silent for a moment, and for a brief second, I thought she might finally understand. But Amanda was never one to give up easily. When her pleas didn't work, she shifted gears entirely. She hired a lawyer, a sharp one from what I heard, and started gearing up for a fight. Suddenly, the woman who had claimed she loved me was laser-focused on taking everything she could from our marriage. Discussions turned into battles, and battles turned into full-on wars. Every decision was a struggle. Who got what, how our assets would be divided, and what Sophie's future would look like. But somewhere along the way, Amanda's fire began to fizzle. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe she finally realized that no matter how much she fought, she couldn't rewrite the past. We both knew we couldn't keep doing this forever. In the end, we reached a compromise. It wasn't perfect, but it was the closest thing to closure we could get. Our finances were split evenly, and we set up a dedicated account for Sophie's education. She'd be free to decide who she wanted to live with, and we both agreed to respect her choice. I left the house to Amanda. It was her dream home after all, and I didn't want to fight her over it. As for the business, we made the tough decision to sell it. Neither of us could imagine running it together anymore. We'd been a team once, a force of creativity and drive, but that energy was gone now, replaced by resentment and pain. I took the larger share of the sale, which Amanda reluctantly agreed to. Through it all, Sophie was the glue that held us together. At just 16, she showed more wisdom and grace than either of her parents. She supported me through every step of the process, listening when I needed to vent and offering quiet reassurances when I doubted myself. But she also made an effort to mend things with Amanda. "I don't condone what Mom did," Sophie told me one evening as we sat on the porch, "but she's still my mom. And I think she knows she messed up. I just hope she learns from it." I nodded, trying to hide the lump in my throat. "You're a better person than I am, Sophie. I don't think I could have handled all this half as well as you have." She smiled faintly and shrugged. "You and Mom taught me how to be strong. Maybe I just got lucky and picked up the best parts of both of you." Hearing that made the pain of the past weeks feel a little lighter. It reminded me that no matter what Amanda and I had lost, we'd done one thing right. We'd raised a remarkable daughter. The divorce was finalized shortly after that, and Amanda and I went our separate ways. The business was gone, the house was no longer mine, and the life we'd built together had unraveled. But in the end, I felt a strange sense of relief. Sometimes you have to let go of the past to make room for the future. And as much as I hated what had happened, I was ready to start fresh. For myself, for Sophie, and for whatever came next. There's a moment in life when you realize that karma, or fate, whatever you want to call it, has a wicked sense of humor. For me, that moment came a year after my divorce from Amanda. I'd done my best to move on, focusing on work, rebuilding my life, and being there for Sophie. I didn't ask about Amanda's life, and I didn't care to know. But, as life often does, it found a way to bring her story back to me. One evening, Sophie came over for dinner. She was in good spirits, but I could tell she had something on her mind. After we finished eating, she leaned back in her chair and said, "Dad, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. It's about Mom." I raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet, letting her continue. "Well," she said, a small smirk tugging at the corners of her mouth. "After the divorce, Mom started dating Justin. They got really close, like couple close. She even used some of the divorce money to open a yoga studio with him." I nodded slowly, not entirely surprised. "That sounds about right. So, what's the catch?" Sophie leaned in, clearly enjoying the build-up to her story. "Here's the funny part. A few weeks ago, I overheard Mom talking to Aunt Victoria. She was venting." "Venting about what?" I asked, curious despite myself. "About Justin," Sophie said, her grin widening. "Apparently, she thought they were exclusive, like a real couple. But Justin didn't see it that way. Turns out, he was dating other women way younger than Mom." I blinked, stunned for a moment, then let out a laugh that I couldn't hold back. "You're kidding me." "I'm not," Sophie said, laughing along with me. "Mom told Aunt Victoria that she felt betrayed, like Justin had completely blindsided her. She actually said, 'I thought we were building something together, and then I find out he doesn't take us seriously.' Sound familiar?" I shook my head, still chuckling. "Oh, the irony." Sophie's smile softened. "Mom told Victoria that it really hit her hard. She's been pretty down ever since she found out. And she also said she regrets how she treated you. She thinks about it a lot, apparently." That last part caught me off guard. For a moment I didn't know what to say. "Do you think she's learned something from all this?" I finally asked. Sophie shrugged. "I think so. Or at least I hope so. She's not the same, Dad. I think she's finally starting to see things from your perspective." I nodded, letting her words sink in. "Well, if that's true, then maybe something good came out of all this after all." As Sophie and I cleaned up the kitchen, I couldn't help but reflect on how poetic it all felt. Amanda had walked away from our marriage chasing what she thought was freedom, only to find herself in the same position she'd put me in. I don't know if Amanda truly understood the pain she caused me, but I like to think she's learning. Life has a way of teaching lessons in the most unexpected ways, and maybe this was hers. For me, though, it was just confirmation that I'd made the right choice. My life had moved on, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you a great mood and good luck.